Man,
Hey there, Shopper Maniacs. You're listening to another episode of the Shop Talk Show podcast, all about front-end web design and development. I'm Dave, failed deploy Rupert, and with me is Chris, CICD Coyer. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
CCD Coyer. I'm doing fantastically, really. You know, in the face of national crisis, my computer continues to work, so that's great. This is a show all about building websites, and we've been talking about browsers so much. You know, maybe we will, maybe we won't. This might be finally a show where we dig into some technology and, I don't know, computing and even servers and stuff in a deep way, because we have an awesome guest who is very knowledgeable about that entire world, Mr. Brian LaRue. Hey, Brian.
Woohoo! Hey, I'm stoked to be here.
Hey. Yeah, thanks for coming on. There's so much to start with. Brian has a kind of an interesting past and worked on some interesting big projects in the past. But let's start with now and then talk about the past and then circle back around. Maybe we'll see how that goes down. But right now you have an interesting startup. You're a co-founder of an app called Begin. Is that right?
Yeah. I work on my day job is working on Begin.com.
Wow.
We
Options.
use serverless CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment, which is a mouthful. I think the TLDR, we get you up and running on AWS within 10 seconds or less.
AWS. Okay. Mm-hmm. It doesn't say CI/CD on the homepage. I wonder if do you avoid it on purpose?
Well, this has been a thing for us. We're still trying to figure out exactly what the messaging is. We love what our tech is, and we thought we knew who our audience would be, and we're learning quickly that it wasn't who we thought it was. So we're probably changing that homepage pretty soon to be a little more webby focused. Initially, we thought we were more of a DevOps tool, but it turns out that the DevOps crowd is a little bit, let's just say, trepidatious about getting on board with serverless. Yeah. But the front-end dev community, there's a bit of hesitation. I think it might be a step too far for them, but the front-end developer community is stoked. They're all over this serverless thing. So we're trying to figure out what that messaging looks like and appeals to them. But we're doing a really terrible job at marketing, if I'm being honest. We've been largely focused on the tech. No, we are. We could be doing a better job. There's room to improve, let's say.
Yeah, well, CICD, I know what CICD is. We've had shows on it before. It stands for continuous integration and continuous deployment, and it feels like it's almost become a expectation lately of how things are. I bet a lot of people listening to the show work in an environment where, whether they know of it or think of it in that way, it does it that way anyway.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know, you commit some code and some stuff runs automatically. That's the CI part, I guess. That's how I would think of it. And then if all goes well, it just goes live, or at least continues along the pipeline, and that's the CD part of it.
That's right. Yeah, and this is kind of like testing was and revision control before it. It's one of those things that once you have it, you can't live without it. But before you've done it, it seems like extra work. And I think it's kind of maybe
the device manager.
The first people to really start doing GitOps and removing friction from deployment. It used to be an entirely isolated step where I would write my code, and I would test my code independently, and then I would throw it over the wall to some QA team, and they would throw it over the wall to some ops team. And this is all about removing friction and lead time.
Yeah, was Heroku the first that had kind of like a command line tool? You'd type like Heroku deploy, and it would go out, and you'd be like, "Oh, cool, that was quick."
First one I remember, and I also remember setting up my own Rails app before that. And after I saw Heroku, I never wanted to do it again myself.
What was the early days? I'm sure Dave remembered. Like if you were working on a Rails app, many years ago,
using the
you wanted to deploy it. Was it largely something that somebody did at the command line, like configured? Do it from one individual computer. computer, you do it.
Yeah, you like merge it all into one computer, spin
it's
it up,
apparently not
make sure it
supposed
all
to be too
works,
bad.
and then rsync it, the files over to Linode.
Yeah.
That's
which was
awkward.
cool. I mean, it's a certain, like, you get down to it, like all these things, it's a server, it's a CPU in the cloud or CPU somewhere on the planet, and but
It's not that I control it.
just push it over Linode, and then hope that your computer and Linode were close enough in configuration, and then
to go live. For some reason, it felt okay that one computer was doing that. I don't know what, but at some point, it started to feel a lot better if like a cloud computer did it. Like we got used to the idea that there was a connection between a repo and stuff going live.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what was the judge of that, but in my world today, I would say Netlify has done a lot towards that goal of like pushing, by I mean Git pushing is the thing that takes me live.
Right.
And that working in branches is the thing that I can still do, but I'm not going live then. That's just like another way to work.
Start.
Because people, I don't know, like the Git workflow is everywhere. Everybody does that. So why don't we tie that to the process of deployment too? And then if you can get a little bit more out of that, that'd be cool too. Like if a merge request was also automatically a staging environment.
Right.
Oh, wow. Fancy.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that I'm really excited about. And the old way, I think the predicate for it was databases. So we used to run our databases on the same box that we ran our web server, and we would even read and write files on that box. And then we realized, oh no, we need two boxes. And oh wait, how do we connect to the database? And I was like, oh, we'll separate those things. And once we teased those apart, that created a whole slew of new problems. But being stateless was a big insight into how we write our code and how we deploy it too. Serverless kind of pushed that to its logical maximum, local maximum. So we have these tiny little stateless things that are usually functions. And because we split it up into all these constituent tiny little functions, we can deploy them in parallel. And better, we can deploy only the ones that change when they change. So we get really massively increased speeds to deployment, which means we get an increase in our speed to lead time to production.
These are only Lambdas we're talking to, right?
Yeah, well, Lambdas and maybe S3, and for the persistent side, DynamoDB is where I've landed anyways. I think there's tons of options. I'm never going to say there's one way to do things. There's lots of ways. This is a way I found that works pretty good, and I'm risk adverse, so I like Amazon, and I'm hosting with Amazon because I'm pretty sure they're going to outlive me, so that'll be good for my timeline.
But that's like, I mean, that's nice because it's like, when you get into these functions or lambdas, I guess is kind of what AWS calls it, right?
Right, yeah.
Like you're writing a function like post edit or something like that, or post get or something, and so like those are two separate files, maybe or maybe not, but like those are two separate files, and your post get function should, I don't know, like you're not going to mess with it that often, so
right. No, that's right. And there's a whole bunch of other side benefits to this type of architecture. So we get for free not only that parallelism on deploy and startup, but we also get the strong isolation post deployment. So we could secure
we could check this out later.
Your GET request, for example, probably doesn't need to write anything to the database. So you can lock it down to just read. And that seems like not that big a deal, but if you think about a monolith, the most secure it can be is the least secure thing it does. Whereas with a serverless app, we can really lock it down on a per route basis, and this can
so much more isolation.
Yeah, and so this can get bonkers because you can run untrusted code now from the user land. So I built a demo app a little while ago called deno.town. So the official Deno is this runtime by a guy named Ryan Dahl who did Node, and he's kind of he's doing a second system, as it were. And the
second album.
Yeah, and
the second album.
It's great because it's Node's greatest hit, and and a lot more stuff basically. And I'm bullish on Deno, but that's a whole other conversation. But I wanted to get going with it, and there was no playground. There was no web playground for this thing. And so I was like, well, to teach myself how to use it, I'm just going to build like a little playground. And I did, and it was useful to me. And I was like, well, maybe I'll just throw this on the internet. And how wild is that I can just throw a brand new, untrusted runtime out on the internet, and I have no concerns about what someone could do with that thing because it's so locked down. And this isn't a capability that we've really had before.
Serverless is obviously of great interest to us at CodePen. We run a lot of our infrastructure that way more and more all the time because of reasons like that. The security is a big deal. People tend to know that. It comes in the box with some of this serverless stuff, but also some speed and some isolation is great, and the fact that it's like 20 cents doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, the cost is kind of maybe it's the thing that gets people really excited. You get 1 million invocations for free, and then you get, I think you pay something like 10 cents per million after that, and so.
Come on, that's whack. That's wild.
So
it's a lot.
Seems like a lot.
Yeah, you can, and so we put them behind.
There is some lag.
So
they even get invoked even less.
Yeah, they barely get invoked at all. It's like they get invoked once to generate a JavaScript file or a CSS file, and then we huck that back up the network, and we won't pass that function again for another file until something changes. So it's a really nice architecture for that.
We've gotten kind of deep in the weeds already here, so maybe we should talk about Begin a little bit more so we can figure out what you build with it and why and stuff. So I did it. I think Dave did too, kind of, kick the tires kind of thing.
Cool.
So you log in and it's, first of all, it's a little mind-blowing. It's like you got to wrap your mind around it first. So let's just see. So I log in, I auth with GitHub, and then there's like a little kind of a builder kind of thing, like a wizard nerds like to call it, which is kind of cool. I've seen another one, you know what I mean? Or like step 1, step 2, step 3, but it's not designed like that. It's more like click the options. It's all nicely designed. Like in the future, we have nice wizards. It reminds me of like Stack where it's like a gem stack version of the same thing. Where you're like, I want this framework and this data store and this theme and this and then you click the button and it wires it all up together and it gives you a repo that's like ready to go like that. It reminds me of that a little bit because you're like, I want the GraphQL starter with Deno instead of Node or whatever, and pick some stuff, and then it, real quickly it behind the scenes it made me a repo, which I only realized when I looked. I think I got an email that's like, "Here's your new repo, congratulations." But not from you, but even from GitHub, I think does it. Anyway, whatever. But what's compelling is right after that, then you see like this series of things that it's doing. This is the clutch moment where you see like little like yellow, orange lights that are like, I'm doing this now, and then it turns green when it's done. That's all the CI/CD stuff happening, right? Like I gotta provision some stuff, I gotta deploy it. It's letting you know as it's doing those things. So that's the moment where you're like, oh, I get it.
This thing is it's so interesting. You can learn these lessons over and over and intellectually know them, but you still never know until you ship. So we began in March of last year, and it was really focused on getting Lambdas up on AWS as fast as possible. And a lot of people tried it, and a bunch of people gave us feedback, and the feedback was, neat, I don't know what to do. And so we were like, oh yeah, okay, so we got to build onboarding paths. So we built these example apps and onboarding paths. You don't need to use anything, or you can use whatever you want. Really all we're doing is wiring up Lambda functions to respond to HTTP events. And so
Lambda, if you wanted to use it raw, is like kind of a pain in the butt, right? If you just are like, I want to make a Lambda, you go to AWS.com and find it in their sea of services they offer. I think there might be some kind of online editor for them, but you definitely wouldn't want to do that, right? Like that's an odd way to manage code. So you need some way to like push these things up to it. I remember there was like Claudia.js would kind of help with it. These days, Yeah, we still have a bunch of stuff on Claude, go ahead. But they have since moved a little bit more towards serverless.com because serverless has, it's a little bit deeper, like it can do your Ruby ones too, because, I think a lot of us just assume that a Lambda is Node, and I would bet a lot of them are, but it's not the only language that Lambda support.
No,
there's more to it.
Custom runtime.
Lucky I don't have friends, dude.
Custom runtime, which I'm hoping
Because I don't know why he's already starting and quitting it.
So Deno's like
Where is this code? It's not even the
Not
random.
a first-class citizen. Not yet, but the way they've built it, extending it's so trivial now, so you can bring your own runtime, and many people are doing that themselves at this point. Like, if you wanted, to run Node but with ES modules, you're out of luck. But if you bring your own runtime, you can do that. And
that's funny because it's not like they're little rockers. That's what they're not, right?
Yeah, no, there's a thing called Firecracker. It's a micro VM. It's the same idea as a container, but it's a lot more low level and just a lot less stuff. It's actually a VM, like a micro VM, is what Amazon calls them. And Firecracker is written in Rust, which doesn't imbue it with any natural properties that make it good, but it does have better properties for security and isolation. Done right, and I believe that team is doing it right. Their cold start times are, approaching zero, and probably will approach zero with enough time. And yeah, you can bring your own runtime, run whatever you want. You're right. It's
meaning like, PHP isn't one they offer just out of the box, but it's not particularly difficult to make that work.
No, and I'm actually pretty big on it myself. I'd like to see Ruby, PHP, Python, all those be first class.
I just got incredibly when struggle for all 2 minutes
has a PHP runtime
and one go
and people can check out.
The shit's just gonna happen.
It's an exciting time because we can take these little tiny functions and use them for the job they're best at. So if you want to have one endpoint in Ruby but another one in Python and another one in
This is not an
PHP,
asshole about it.
You can do that now. And that's
same repo, same everything.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. So, okay. So the point is, you need something to help manage your lambdas. You just do. You just have to. And so Begin is one of those things that, you're going to want it. To help you get them there and get the permissions all right and, I don't know, help you with staging versions of them, all that stuff, right?
All that stuff. So our hypothesis for Begin, and I'm sure a lot of the other Layer 2 cloud providers would agree that Amazon continues to get bigger and bigger. They continue to grow faster and faster. They will continue to add more and more features. And they're not going to get, more tractable to use. You're going to still walk into that console and
yes, Rich, I'm forfeiting because the whole game is going to be fucked.
I did it today.
Yeah.
I did it today. Well, this is literally what happened today. I woke up and there was like a problem with a user-facing thing, right? And I was like, oh, jeez, what the hell? And you could kind of see in the console that something would go wrong. And it gave an error in the console that was like, it found like an angle bracket in JSON. It was one of those errors. Okay. It was like, I tried to parse this JSON, but I found this angle bracket. That's weird. So but I couldn't really figure out. But you could kind of see, like, I need to see some logs. And I unfortunately didn't have like a lot of deep knowledge of who set this up and where it is and how to find those logs. Oh. So I had to log into the stupid AWS console, find the right. I had to guess at the region it was deployed in because I went to the region I thought it was, and there was nothing in there. I'm like, crap. Oh, I guess we use US West 2, not 3 or whatever. And I found this stupid Lambda, and then had to dig around in there to see if logging was set up, which it was, I guess. I don't know if you get that automatically or not, but it was set up. What do they call it? Cloud Watch or something?
Yeah.
And then found the right function, which I just had to guess at what it was. And then found the logs, and then opened the logs, and the logs had some gobbledygook, but I found the kind of error, and I found the URL, and I was like, oh, so something between the Lambda, and it was calling out to another service, and while it was calling out to another service, the other service, it was intercepted somehow, and it was getting a CAPTCHA page. So it turns out that in between a Lambda talking to a server, Cloudflare got involved and threw up a CAPTCHA. And the CAPTCHA
HTML, they tried to parse it.
Parse the CAPTCHA page. Thank God, I was able to get into Cloudflare and like put a rule up. It's like, oh, what a hard thing to do.
Straight
I
into
don't
the
know
next match, that will happen.
helps debug that, but then maybe
And
right,
the guy was
there's
what a
be some
save.
logging that I could see without it being so obtuse.
Yeah, you're only one click away from the logs, at least. And this is kind of a distributed systems problem too, like we're combining all these small pieces that are decoupled or loosely coupled, and it's, this is just sort of the craft now. We need really good logging and error reporting. The DevOps crowd would say this is, not what you want. What you want is observability, so you catch the bugs before your customers do. But either way, you need something that helps.
Now we've got a
sift
Smurf
through
on
this
our hands.
massive amount of data that you're probably creating with these logs.
Why don't we freestyle?
Identify these problems and root cause them if you can. Yeah, this one
would have been production only anyway, because it would work fine in dev, because you wouldn't have this like firewall in between, probably.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, not to make this about my problems.
No. It's relevant, and this is the issue, because I don't think it gets necessarily easier. We probably just build ourselves better tools for the discovery of these types of issues and the mitigation of them. But like, it kind of is what it is. They're not at a point yet where we see the tooling like running locally and giving you all the kind of feedback that you want in real time, and it is all about these short feedback loops. Remember when mobile was just getting going? Everyone would say, "Oh, you'll never be able to, do this on your machine. You're going to need to build to your phone in order to test." And like, that was just nonsense. Of course, eventually the emulators and the simulators were going to get good enough. They just weren't in 2008, and it's the same state right now in the cloud. There's a lot of people saying you can't run this locally and there's no way to replicate this stuff, but it's just because our environments are crummy right now and it's Wild West, which is kind of awesome because I love this state.
I'm gonna be playing this.
You can start building these tools yourself and finding these problems and fixing them for a pretty large group and growing group of people.
This episode of Shop Talk Show is brought to you in part by Cloudways, literally cloudways.com. It's hosting that is backed by different cloud providers. So it's like, let's say you want to spin up your Laravel site on AWS. You know you want it to be on AWS. It's got the power and reliability, stuff that you want. But let me tell you, AWS is working. I don't want to do that.
Amazing shot, you gold. You're amazing gold player.
Through them, letting them be my support and help with all that stuff. So it's a managed cloud hosting platform. Takes care of all the complexities. Lets you just focus on building a website. Great thing. You got your choice. There's cloud and ocean. There's others to choose from. Unlimited websites, pay as you go.
Luckily, I scored a kick-off goal.
Yeah, that kind of stuff that I definitely want. I definitely want other people. Just everything I want. I need it. I know it's important. And with this, you get mine, pure 24/7 support round the clock. Well, there have a discount for you. If you want to try out Cloudways, the discount code is SHOPTALK30 and you get 30% off.
What a save. Fuck you, Psyonix. Setting this toxic Smurf to gold.
I think this is cool. There's so much power in AWS. I know, I think we were talking before the show here, but it just, one of the hardest things I did last year was
He was going to demo me, so I knew I
load
couldn't be there.
Automatic scaling and things like that. And
I just couldn't be there. He was going to demo me there.
Set up in Azure to do stuff like that too last year. So setting up all these are really powerful tools, but they're very I think Brian, you had said it's like different teams manage different products.
Oh yeah.
Routing Route 53, the domain routing tool, and the S3 storage bucket tool, and the DynamoDB tool, and the one the like lambda function tool. Those
And
are
you
all
just
different
have that
tools. Like
layer.
the log tool is a different tool, like different team inside of Amazon.
Yeah,
right?
they've got this pizza team thing.
Yes, I'm just
and
not.
I always thought that was just like a nice thing the manager said. And
Go in.
turns out it's true. this company with like literally something like, you know, I think tens of thousands of employees are all in these two pizza teams. And as soon as you realize it's true, the console makes sense. All of a sudden, all these like completely disparate products that have totally different UIs,
Right.
completely different conventions, make sense because these are small teams moving really fast. And yeah, this isn't lost on Azure. Microsoft knows this stuff, and so they're kind of doing the same playbook. But it's also got some predictable results. We're getting this, a lot
just
of
gonna get
sprawl,
stupid
a lot
kickoff.
of difficulty in the implementation,
I'll
a lot
go.
of inconsistency in the implementation side and the integration side, and yeah, it's kind of just how it goes.
Yeah, you log in.
That's because
you log
water's
in-
on it.
Azure, God bless. No, but you log in, and it's nice. But then like, man, I'm just lost.
I'm
and
the
then
same
I
way.
try to find my logs, and I'm just lost. I think it's it's that hard problem to solve. Like you have so many things, and you're trying to put them all together, and managers of different departments are fighting for visibility.
Yeah.
But it seems
Smurf
like
can wave dash or
when
some
you're doing
shit.
it begin is like, and you have this other kind of open source seed thing called Architect, which I'd like to talk about.
Yeah.
But what you're doing with this is like trying to make this whole DevOps portion of it go away, kind of just sort of diminish. But begin is kind of more angled towards serverless. That's right.
Nice one.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Only serverless.
We're trying to push the complexity down and into the invisible layer of the value chain and imbue anybody with these superpowers that the platform offers. And this barrier to entry is largely usability at the moment. It's not really technical. It's more about patience. So there's like, I used to joke about this a long time ago. There's two kinds of hard problems. There's a hard problem that takes just brute force to solve. Like, I'm going to move a beach one grain of sand at a time. Not very intellectually taxing. And then there's like hard problems that are intellectually taxing.
How's that not safe?
I don't know, understand the fundamental laws behind gravity. That's going to take some math. So, the move.
Are we interviewing for Google?
No, but the previous one is my kind of problem because the way you solve that beach problem is much easier than the other one. You can't, I can't make myself a theoretical
Come, let me score
physicist
a goal.
overnight, but I can make a great
Boost.
fan every day.
Yeah, you can chip away at it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think this is one of those problems, and I also think that cloud providers know this. They're not unaware that they have this issue. They're just trying to race to get as much market dominance on the capability side right now.
Right. And they've already had so much success that it's like, they're doing something, right? So it's hard to be that